lime, alum is South Pinnacle, and chlorine is bonded chemical.
How the prices compare to like last year in the ballpark range, or higher or lower?
Lime was $44 a ton, cheap.
$44. Wow.
Yeah.
If it used to be $45 and $44 it's only $1 a ton, that's a heck of a deal.
So
Now,
I
if it was
figured we get 20 tons, so it's a savings of a little over $800
wow.
every ship.
Oh, you get that. Yeah.
Party for council.
Not once a month.
Once a month.
Yeah.
Party.
There's Mr. Barr.
Party for council.
What's that?
I said a party for council. We
Party
can
for
do
council.
that.
There we go.
What about, was there any of the other
Others
two?
were pretty close to last year's.
Oh, okay.
Just a few dollars. One would be one out over a few dollars.
Mhm.
It wasn't any big savings like it was.
Saw there was some car in the parking lot that had West Virginia license. You know what company that guy was from?
Here. One cost.
That's right.
The second thing I wanted to bring up, and it's kind of something that I don't even know, I really haven't really discussed with the mayor a whole lot. But it was something that I had planned on doing at the wastewater plant this year and put in the budget. And it was the painting of the South Clarifier. And I ended up having an engineering firm write up specifications for the painting of it. It's never been painted since it was installed, and the clarifier was put in 1991. We're going to have to do some upgrades to catch up on some of the painting down at the wastewater plant. When they do paint them, it's an excellent paint. We've got 20 years out of it. We're just now getting through the primer a little bit, and haven't seen really major rust of any kind, but it's time that these clarifiers start to need to get painted. Anyway, I budgeted.
It was in the budget or it was not?
It was in the budget, but let me speak a little further. I budgeted $40,000 to paint one of the clarifiers, which one of the clarifiers at the wastewater plant can cost me $30,000 to paint in this upgrade. Well, there's a little bit more involved in a wastewater clarifier, I guess, than what was anticipated. So, I had the engineers give me an estimate on after they wrote the specifications up, because I was going to take the specifications around, because it was under $50,000. I felt I was going to just get bids from different ones, and then just low bid I'd have come in. Well, to paint the metal was engineer's estimate. Now, sometimes they'll be high. I figure a lot of times engineer's estimate's about 10% high.
Who did this?
This is Heath and Sawyer. They are an engineering firm. The guy who designed the upgrade of the wastewater plant worked for Malcolm Kern
Yeah.
and Scott Phipps. I know you've met him.
Yeah.
Well, he went with Heath and Sawyer, and we knew he knew a lot about the plant, different things, so we decided to have them do the specifications. Anyway, total, we're at about $93,000.
Please. Did you realize that we're gonna clean out the clarifier for them before they paint it,
That's
right?
cleaning it out. But
Gee.
a lot of the cost is we paint a certain portion of the concrete clarifier. And you have to take the weirs out, that's one condition. You have to, after they sandblast the concrete, sometimes chunks of concrete can fall out. There's a lot of variables there that could happen that would raise the price. Plus the paint, I didn't anticipate the type of paint. Just in paint, to paint that clarifier, you're looking at about $60,000 just in materials, the type of paint that we use. Which is gonna, yeah. The rest is labor, and the rest is
After everybody wakes up.
mobilization. This is it.
The engineer's estimate.
Take one and pass it down.
Good.
Man, that seems like good business to be in, I guess. Huh?
Paint and clarify.
So the clarifier at the water plant was only $30,000 For about the same size of clarifier,
No.
a little bit smaller, a
The
little bit.
wastewater clarifier is bigger, but, so I added an extra $10,000. I thought, you know,
Wednesday morning.
this is the engineer's estimate.
Talking about what was in the budget then?
37.1.
Yeah, this price here and this price together, these two prices. Okay.
So,
The 40,000 Dick was John's
Okay.
guesstimate as far as what to put into the budget.
So anyway, like I said, we're up around $93,000. So what I want to do, and because I feel that we can't postpone this, I really feel we need to get on this and get this structure painted, because the longer you wait, the more damage you have. So what I'm proposing is, I request that the following legislation be prepared: appropriate $53,300, add it to the $40,000 that's already in the budget, in the wastewater replacement fund, to the machinery and equipment supply, and to allow the painting of the south clarifier per engineering specifications. That's the first legislative request. The second legislative request is I request that the following legislation be prepared, authorizing and directing the mayor to advertise for bids for the painting of the south clarifier at the Heath wastewater plant according to specifications on file. Well, the specifications have already been written up, how you have to sandblast it to a certain point, what all takes place. So, you know, if we get a good bid, you know, it may not be near as much as what we're anticipating, but I want to be able to cover the cost if we bid it and we want to award it. So that's what the second legislative request is for.
How much money do we?
we have to do this before we go out with it, right?
Yes.
So we've got almost $960,000 in the wastewater replacement fund.
How much?
Almost $960,000. How quickly does that replacement fund get built up?
40 to 60,000 a year gets put in.
Okay, so basically you're looking at this year's allocation being put toward this project.
If I thought it
What
was,
other
if I
plans
thought
did
it
you have
was,
for that then this year, anything? Not for this year.
if I thought that it's something that could be put off, but what I'm planning on doing is I want to do one clarifier this year, I want another clarifier next year, and then I want to do another basin the third year, because we need to catch up on painting now on the inside of the tank. A lot of the reason why the maintenance on the tanks don't like to get done is there's a specific time of year that we can paint the tanks. In other words, when we take down a clarifier, we cut the plant in half. Okay, so this is all scheduled to take place in July or August, when the flows are typically the lowest of the year. Okay, so, you know, we don't take the tanks down on a routine, we do it yearly, but we don't like to do it for long periods of time. Am I right, Nick?
Correct.
So, you know, we're wanting to do one this year, one next year, and then finally the third tank the third year. And then the painting should be all caught up as far as the treatment processes inside the treatment process. The aeration tanks were painted, and piping and that was painted when we upgraded to 2 years ago. Yeah.
So clarifiers on the opposite side of the lane where the digesters are, right?
There's digesters, there's aeration tanks, and there's the
The aeration
clarifiers.
tanks, that's what I'm thinking, right, okay. Oh, yeah, the clarifiers are on the other side of the aeration tanks.
Yeah.
No, there's doors.
Yeah. No, I need that over.
So what's the third thing
Where they
you're talking
get
about?
So next
Third
Monday, if you
thing
leave
is,
it after next
very
Monday.
far
so-
back close to the river.
Of before
Yeah, just put it anytime.
going into.
I need to have it Thursday.
I
I need it Thursday.
digesters. You know where the digesters are? There's 3 digesters we use.
Uh-huh.
It's the settling
Give it
tank.
to me.
Oh, it's not settling tank. What is it called?
Bring it Monday. Next Monday.
You don't.
The sludge.
On the scum?
No. The tank right beside the digester that we
Oh,
concentrator.
the thickener.
They call it the thickener. I call it settling, but they call it the thickener.
It's gravity thickener.
The gravity thickener needs to be painted, because if you look at the beams going across, you see the primer, the red primer sticking through, you know, I mean, you should not be seeing primer when you get to that point, it's time to paint. So, like I say, none of those have been painted in 20-something years. Okay? So, and the reason why is because they don't like to have them down. They like to keep them running so that we don't, we treat more efficiently and stuff. So when we have everything up and running. So now another thing is, and I don't know if it plays into this a little bit, it may play into it some, but they have a certain time of the year they gotta paint it, and they have a certain length of time they gotta paint it. Because we don't wanna be cut in half getting close to spring, coming fall when we start getting more rain and moisture and different things, so.
Driest time of the year, and more people out of town, using the most.
Yep.
Plus it's all your time.
Farm's only now says we're supposed to run it warm before.
Questions, comments?
No more.
That'll be done.
Now, hopefully we get a heck of a bid, and I mean, we won't need all that replacement fund money, maybe.
So what's the plant capacity? No, how much capacity do we have above what we normally run?
We're 1.75, plant runs about 1.2, 1.3. Plant can treat 1.75 MGD, 1.75 MGD. Now, they could.
With both clarifiers operating.
Right. You have one clarifier, you cut that in half.
So you're down to 850, 900, maybe.
Yeah.
And
So
what's
you-
our average? And
so-
what's our
Now,
average?
it can
daily use?
handle it, for certain lengths of time. You go a couple weeks and
How long is it gonna take for that paint to be done?
I think 30 days. Once they paint it, it's 30 days. There's a 30-day cure time on the concrete, what they put on the.
So they gotta paint it. for
How
30,
long does it
And then it's
take
gotta
them to
cure
paint?
for 30 to meet the 2-month window that we're talking about.
Correct.
It's gonna take them a month to paint it,
I don't think so. Probably take maybe.
week and a half.
A lot of contractors to do this kind of work.
I got names of 4 in the state.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem. Problem is our time frame. Okay? This is the end of April. We've gotta, if we were to do this, if we were to put the bid out tomorrow, okay, which isn't gonna happen,
The
we'd
specifications.
have to have a 2-week
Yeah.
period of time at least to advertise the bids. Okay. Okay. Yeah,
We're doing it
I
on
mean,
this.
you're probably not gonna award it for the end of May.
Probably
We're,
end
we
of
have
June.
to, I mean, it's probably gonna have to have be a company that has nothing to do this summer, because they would have already lined up their work for the summer, right?
Well, I don't know, painting's a little different.
You got more
Well,
than
not
one
if you're
crew.
talking about a 30-day project, that's a big chunk of time.
30-day cure time.
About
How
10
About a week
days.
and a half to paint it. I'd guess about 10
Oh,
days. to paint
okay, I thought you said it was 30 days to paint it and then 30 days to cure.
it. No.
Still contractors doing more than just painting.
What they normally do is they have a foreman on the job, and a lot of the painters come out of the hall, the union halls and
Yeah.
different things. So I would say that painting's gonna be a little bit different than just getting a general contractor that does it. I mean, I would think that I'm hoping that it works out.
If we get a bid, we run it for the timing, because we only have so for the time.
No.
They said, we can't get to this until September or October, we're gonna say,
With
We'll wait another year.
it says right in the specifications
It'll be in
when
the
it's gonna be
bid,
done.
it'll be in the bid that it has to be done a certain period of time.
It
If they
says,
can't do that, they shouldn't.
everything's spelled out in the specifications. As soon as we award it, I mean, it's one of these things where you wanna pass it on the first reading, which would be next month.
Monday.
Next Monday. You wanna move things along.
I'm just worried about what the
If
price
you
tag
miss
is
it,
gonna be.
if you miss it, well, if the price tag's outrageous, you don't have to accept the bid. If they can't do it within that length of time, you don't accept it, you just postpone until the following year.
yes, we have to get it, you know, what we have.
It doesn't have to be done this year, but we would like to have it done.
Which will probably order. That was- it was
The paint is warranted.
for
for, I don't know, 10 years probably, and maybe more. I can find out for you. There's like 3 different types of paint that they can use that was specified. Sherwin-Williams was one of them. Then there was another 2 that I'm not real familiar with. But it's specifically, I mean, I didn't draw these specs up. Reason why I didn't, because I wanted it done right. Okay? So, you know, I mean, people that have painted clarifier, wastewater clarifiers, designed the specifications, what type of paint, what type of sandblast you need to use, what the materials were. I mean, everything's spelled right out. I've got a copy of it right here. Let's look at it.
What's the, so how's this paint applied? Because it's sprayed on.
And then the millage has to be checked as well. And then you have to have a certain type of sandblast. It's gotta be a clean blast. There's different blasts. There's clean blast, white blast. There's all different kind of sandblasts that you can do to it.
An aggregate for just one.
You're right. Yes, sir. No, it's okay. What's it?
Well, I think we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, we got some bids.
There you saw the engineer's estimate. I'm guessing that the bid.
Lynn's on vacation this week. How do you want to get these things handled?
Good question.
Jim did?
Suppose I could just try to get them straight to David
We haven't even started this yet.
and have him
We
draw
haven't
the
even
ordinances
started
up?
this yet.
Yeah, I can call then and see. I don't think she went anywhere. She'd probably come in and take care of them.
She called me today too. She wanted to know if I was gonna tell her that too. I'm sure she'd come out to do something like that. I can call her.
She didn't touch on it, you work on it.
No.
So,
It's
Let me know.
basically like this wasn't planned. It was planned. I put 40,000 in the budget to do it. I thought that would be fun. I really did. And part of the money that you're using is money coming out of the regular budget. $40,000 is coming out of the regular budget.
What's this again? Guy that used to work at.
Hazen and Sawyer is the engineering firm.
The engineer was the engineer that oversaw the improvement project that was going on when he was at Malcolm Kearney.
We had a lot of good.
What's
we
Malcolm
feel-
Kearney called now? Arcadis?
It's called Arcadis. Hazen and Sawyer is another company. They're a very big firm. They're bigger than Mountain Valley.
Arcadis, are there offices off of 23 there, just north of 270, Worthington area there? Yeah, I drove by there, it's that whole area is built up. Yeah, that was a clunker.
Always got good. It's just, it's just something that, guys, I mean, it's a necessity. I mean, that's not the way I can put it. You gotta paint steel if you want it to last.
So is this painting the concrete walls of it too, the walls on the inside?
That's what we're taking it down so far. That's not painting the bottom. I mean, that's just the interior lip all around and down about what, about maybe 4 or 5 feet.
Why is it not painting all?
Because there's a lot of deterioration that takes place. I mean, you
Another
get like
inspector job.
you get like slimes and you get algae and you get stuff that's so far.
To the top.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, it's just what they painted at the original when they did it originally and where they put back.
They didn't paint it all the way down to the bottom. That's just bare concrete.
What's the structural thing in the rest of it?
Looks good. but I'm not gonna guarantee it if you keep those other than paint.
So this 2,800 square feet of concrete surface area coating. We're just talking about the upper lip, a few feet down, and that equals 2,800 square feet.
That's what they're not paying. What the engineers recommend, it's what they recommend. I don't know, what's the diameter of this clarifier, about 52 feet? That's what comes to mind.
That sounds about right.
That's the size of the
And then don't forget, they got that channel. So I mean,
There's
it's
a channel
a big
inside, it
area.
goes like this.
Yeah, it's big area.
And so it'd be paint top, paint side, paint bottom, that's kind of like around the edge, so it extends more than I would anticipate.
Mayor, just put the legislative request, we'll put them in the back of Lynn's box there, she'll take care of it.
Right here?
Yeah, cause I got some letters in there for her to do stuff with, so she said, just put it in the back here tonight, she'll take care of it.
Okay. Alright. I'll do that now.
Y'all gonna spend money for this meeting?
Good. All the way to the back. There should be 2 letters in there that Heffley and I signed.
Okay, wanted to let you know that some of the other improvements that we did was, windows and wastewater plant, we went from the old aluminum style to vinyl clad windows, which will save a lot on energy. At least that's what they keep telling me, so that's what it looked like, this is what it looks like now. These are some of the new, the installation of them. The outside, windows in the lab, windows in the lab can't be opened.
Why not?
That's just a standard with labs. You can't have anything coming in, and it's gotta be an air conditioning laboratory. What's that?
Magic man from the world says you can't open the windows.
Oh. Yeah, PA Magic Man. That's what it looks like when it was installed, that's what it looks like when it was completed. They wrapped them in aluminum style. I want to let you know that we're having confined space training. Confined space training will take place for water and wastewater flows on 5/20/14. This will take place at the Hoback Shelter House. We
What
did.
day of the week is that? 22nd, that's a Thursday?
I signed up for it on the thing, so hopefully they didn't sign up from other.
We're going on, training on this. And is everybody, are we up to date, or do we training in case there is a problem, we all know what to do?
We train to prevent a problem. What the fire department does, they're a little bit different training. They're more on the rescue end of it. We're more on preventing to have a rescue. So, what we do is, we have so many people above the hole, we have so many people, this person that's strapped in a harness, with a tripod on the top. We monitor the air concentration inside before we even go down in. We know exactly how much oxygen's in there. We do steps to try to prevent from having an accident. The fire department is for the rescue portion.
I'm glad to hear that, because I don't want an accident to happen somehow. We would have just been on top of it, it wouldn't have happened. And that's,
Guys do a pretty good job. We do the training. We have all the equipment. In fact, we went in with a lot of training events with Heath. And they're, if you compare us with a lot of
Hey, what's going on? Oh, okay.
a lot of other small communities were very well equipped.
So, was it a department head meeting where we had a conversation, maybe it was the chief Huggins or something, where there was a question of the equipment that was available?
There was.
Did we get that cleared up?
Yeah, what they're questioning is they want us to have air masks and things. Those are all stuff that would take place on a rescue.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not.
If you had that, then we wouldn't need the fire department.
That's correct. That's correct. And we don't maintain those masks. And we did have it one time down there, but then it got so cumbersome to have them certified and all that. We do exactly what we're trained to do. We don't get in there unless we can.
Yeah, I thought we gave the fire department our stuff.
We did.
Because we wasn't using it.
Right, we did. paving the masks and everything. So, then they helped us with the trailer, confined space. I mean, they helped us purchase that and whatever. But I think Mark was thinking, he's thinking rescue, and we're a little bit of different side. We're thinking
Proactive, you will.
That's correct. Exactly.
Double check that, though, make sure you're still signing.
Okay.
I don't wanna have last minute, and that's,
Just hold it in your office again.
okay.
We'll find a place to hold it.
Confined
The,
space.
Find space.
will there be other, other,
Yeah, we're allowed up to 15 people, or all the water and all the wastewater employees are gonna go through it.
okay,
Then, I think Mark asked if some of his guys could go, and I think we can allow up to 4 additional besides all the water and wastewater.
alright. Anybody from any other departments around in the area that would like to be extended an invitation?
I haven't really, because I think we'll be full. I think we'll have 15. This was a confined space here that we did at the water plant. We had the wastewater guys.
Who's
come
that,
down.
you weren't done?
That's Bob Thompson.
What is Bob?
That's the confined space trailer, which guys brought down. That's the guys going down the side, you see in the back there, you see the tripod. It's already been checked to make sure that the oxygen levels down inside were sufficient enough for someone to go down inside. And that's, peeked down inside the hole. There's another one that looks a little better. That's where we climbed down inside. We went in there to, do some maintenance, I think, on some things that we had to do while we were, doing some work down in there. That's it. Okay, I guess we're getting ready to start into the wastewater. We're already in that. Talk about confined space. I talked about the wastewater plant. Repair of, some of the stuff that they've done recently is repair of the water line to chemical buildings. Completed cleaning of the chlorine contact tank and chlorination system, and new roof installed on the chemical building. That's kind of what's taking place this month. There was a repair to the water line going into the building.
Is that Shane?
This is, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's shit.
So this is,
They're repairing, a water line going into the chemical building.
it's like in orange.
And it's a hydrant that's out of service right now because we're doing repair. When you have a hydrant out of service, you got to back it. That's Carl doing some of the work. Carl Mozart.
See, you had the old water guys doing the water line.
Yeah, this is the water line. This here is the cleaning of the chlorine contact tank and dechlorination.
What was the repair that needed to be done?
The repair to the line, they had to do a repair inside the building, so they had to do some changes on the shut-off valve out front so they could shut it off and do the repairs and stuff.
This is, they were doing it as the valve.
Right. This is just repairs done, this is just cleaning, of the digester, not digester, the chlorine contact. And you can see the amount of growth of the algae that builds up over a period of time. Now, what happens is we don't feed chlorine year round. So we only feed chlorine starting May 1st. And then it goes to what, October 1st?
Yeah.
So this is them cleaning out the debris in the bottom. And then this is what it looks like when the debris is cleaned up. So this is before, this is after in one of the channels. Then all these channels will be cleaned like that. There's 2 other channels on this side.
Be a hose in that, could you?
Power washing. Okay. Power washing, hosing out. Now this is right, this is the step right before it goes to the river.
Yeah.
There's these guys down inside cleaning the Okay, now we're on the roof. This is the chemical building roof that we replaced at a cost of, I think it's right around $8,000. It's new metal on this roof. You know, we have a budget. We try to do a roof down there, and we've been getting roof tons about every year, changing them over from the asphalt roofs to a metal roof.
The thing is going horizontally across there on top of that nice guard.
Yes. Contractor that uses some army shell. I don't think I'm really allowed to take the picture, but I guess. Okay, that was some of the work that was done last month at the wastewater plant. Right now, I want to talk a little bit about the lab work rules. Always kind of like to bring up the lab because it's a very important part of the wastewater process. And why it's very important is it assists in locating deficiencies in the plant, provides an operating record, confirm that desired results are being obtained, ensure compliance with Ohio EPA regulations, and you comply with monitoring requirements of the NPDES permit. The NPDES permit is a permit that we have to go by. We have to meet certain criteria and limits on what everything we discharge out of the plant. The lab. It's being stowed there. Lab name is here. Here. And Carl does ours. I also wanted to bring up, we had a little reoccurrence of our grease coming out of the storm water. Grease coming out of the storm water. If we get a bunch of water, I don't know if you remember about this time last year, when you get an influx of a lot of water, we had the local Chinese restaurant dumping grease down in the stormwater pits. Well, we were a little bit concerned about whether or not it was happening again. We did check their manifests that they think that they are falling out. So what I'm guessing is it is some that was left over, residue that was left over from the last time. So, but anyway, we're just be aware that yes, it doesn't do it. Yeah. Actually, Park National Bank keeps an eye on that because the way it happened last time. So as soon as they see something out there, they're on the phone to me. So I ran over there right away, took some pictures, and then we started checking it.
Is your daughter-in-law still at that branch?
No, she's downtown.
Is that right?
Well, no, I
like egg roll.
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, I don't really notice an odor. I think it's more people just notice the look of it. You know, they know it's there. So, okay. That kind of discusses everything in wastewater. I know after the very first topic in wastewater, kind of took the air out and wind out of everybody. We're going to move on to water. Water tank improvement update, the VFDs are installed and the water tank update, improvement update. VFDs are installed in the new 150 horsepower high service pump.
What is VFD?
I kind of went over this last meeting. It's a variable frequency drive. What it does is it kind of it ramps it up and ramps it down, the pumps. And also, it's a big savings on electricity using VFDs. Variable frequency drives have came down in cost a lot from what they used to be, and they're used pretty widely now. So, but what's really impressive is the motor that runs the high service pumps are 150 horsepower. I think that's the biggest horsepower pump we've ever had at the water plant. Concrete grout in the bottom of the new clarifiers are completed. Flat concrete work has started around the clarifiers. New VFDs are working on the clarifier drives. And new light poles are installed, LED lighting at on the poles on the outside. New high service pumps are capable of producing 500 to 1,800 gallons per minute each. That's how variable they are. We start out at 500 and we go clear up to 1,800 gallons per minute. When we did have it, we did a test, a couple weeks ago on the high service pumps. We ramped them up to the max, and we had some fire alarms go off around the city, so forth, because we had a reading. So what really we used to laugh, and I said this before, we used to laugh, but he used to call down and say, turn up the pressure. Well, we couldn't turn up the pressure. Now we actually have that capability. If we get in a bad fire or something like that in the main part of Heath or something like that, we have the ability to ramp it up if they let us know if we want to. There's where the new high service pumps were set. There's one of the new motors that came in right here. They're painting the motors after they're installed. They're actually painting the piping. There's the variable frequency drive I was talking about, so you know what it looks like. Those are actually the pumps that you hang down inside. Each one of those are an impeller, and the water sucks from the bottom of this, and as it goes up, these impellers keep increasing the pressure. And ramps it up, ramps it up. Here's a picture of the grout that I talked about, mentioned in previous to this. This bottom portion here, this is all the whole new clarifier. That's the clarifier was built in 1998. Clarifier is going to be built now in 2014. I talked to the painters that painted the one in 1998. They said it's in excellent condition, even though they sandblasted it down. He said there's no dark rust after they sandblasted, which means that nothing has really gotten into the metal to make it bad. So, he said it's one of the best clarifiers he's seen, and we've done on a periodic basis. We've painted them when they needed to be painted. So they're in really good shape. This is actually them putting the grouting in the bottom of the clarifier. This is the last step of all the concrete work that's inside the clarifier. And what they do is they smooth that out perfectly. So when the rake arm in the bottom goes around, it doesn't hit or anything as the rake arm goes in circular motion and pull solids into it. I think it's amazing.
How do they keep it level all the way?
What they actually do is they use this rake arm and they attach boards to it. And then they'll get it about where they think it's going to be, and then they'll actually they'll push that rake arm around there and kind of.
To level the
There's
concrete.
four guys that did that down inside there. And I would think it would take a lot more than that. But the grouting is actually about 3 inches thick. It goes on the very top, and then they bond it to the existing with some kind of chemical treatment. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about the distribution maintenance, number 2, on underwater. Several main breaks. We had one on Kerry Lane, one on Blue Jay Road, and one on River Oaks Condominium. That last one.
on Watson?
We had one on Watson that was a part of a repair that we were doing that turned into a break.
Oh, yeah.
This is a main break that was on Kerry Lane. Of course, it's always in the most opportune places, and this was right in the middle of the lady's driveway. We're backfilling mode there. I got there kind of late, but everything had been completed down to the hole, and they said filling it up with grids. This is out on Keller Drive. I wanted to really show you guys. They didn't know I was coming, but I've been stressing here lately about helmets and vests working on the road. So I just kind of bopped in on this repair that they were doing on Keller on this hydrant. I was happy to see that everybody was in their vests and had their hard hats on. That's Bill. He was a transfer from the street department.
That's
Yeah, I actually, the yellow helmets that you see, like, city issue, that would be the issue, but it needs to be qualification. This is, the River Oaks condominium, we had to dig up the valves, and expose it before we could even shut the water off in order to fix the main break in the River Oaks condominium. Now, something I wanna explain to you is, we don't own the main, we don't own the street, we don't own anything that we're working on here. We came in to control the main break because we don't want our water just gushing everywhere. It wasn't put in the city specifications, that's why we had to dig it up the valves. That's why it's so important when we accept things, which I'm hearing we're going to be accepting this water line someday.
If we
Don't let
accept
them
it,
put
they
them in
bring it
city
up.
specifications and then you turn around and accept it later on, then you're gonna inherit problems.
You heard that from where?
What portion of what I said?
If they're going to get.
You heard that from where?
I heard that from John, that they have had meetings to accept, you know, but it hasn't gone through yet.
Can we make them bring it up the way it's supposed to be?
I certainly will.
Before we'd ever accept it.
That's why I'm telling you about it now.
Huh?
Same with the roads.
The roads aren't ours either.
No, well, this is private property.
Yeah.
So we have a jurisdiction.
We didn't have to go in and fix that main road, I don't think, but we did it because if we didn't, I'll show you some pictures.
We have a jurisdiction on private property.
Oh my goodness,
Do
look at
that.
that.
And if it's our water and it's flowing out like that,
Look at that, it's like a river.
And that's unmetered water.
Yeah.
then we have the right to go in and fix it. Now, I called Dave Morrison on this. I said, what? Because they were already calling me wanting everything repaired. And I know we don't own the road, and I know we don't own the main, and I know we don't, you know, and it's not put in the city
Then
specifications.
how are they getting, are they paying for the water service?
Well, we could theoretically charge them to repair that main. No, we can't. That's the whole reason why I'm here talking to you tonight. Right there's where the main break occurred. That's the-
So we lost thousands of gallons of water.
So what I'm trying to tell you is we don't own the street, we do not own the water or the sewer main, and we don't ever wanna own the sewer main. So how much responsibility do we have on the street repair, water main repair after a main break? And I got a question mark on my side. I contacted Dave Morrison. Dave Morrison told me that you have, we talked to Butch about it. They conferred, and the way he said is we should try to put things back so that they're not just helter-skelter, but we should invest a bunch of money. In other words, we had to rip out, in order to fix the main break, we had to remove a bunch of mailboxes. We had to dig up their street to get on the valve and shut it off. And then we had to dig up the spot in the street where we repaired the main.
We had to dig up the street to get to the valve.
Yeah.
They paid for the valve.
Basically, they put some plastic thing down about that far down, and then a plastic cap that it's not even we won't allow.
Yeah.
And that's what's in there. That's what was in there. That's what we found. And they had met with this condominium association earlier, and it never got finished on accepting the water main. Okay, but, I don't know if they'll come back to us again, but there was a meeting on us accepting this water main, and they were gonna give it to us. But we got to be really careful when you accept something like that, first of all, it's all in the ground, so you don't know for sure if everything was put in the way it's supposed to be put in. And personally, my personal opinion is, I wouldn't be accepting it. I mean, I would make it so that when you have water flowing out like this down the road, we have the ability to go in and fix it. And then
Charge.
it's up to you guys what you wanna do.
They should
We
be-
can do this
they
out of
should
the
be
goodness of
paying.
our heart and
Yeah.
repair it, or we can send them a bill for repairing.
That's what should be done.
Now, that's why I might not have heard back any more complaints after I explained to them that none of that is ours, to one of the association presidents. the association president. I haven't heard a word from him since. And probably because he's afraid that we would charge him for repair. And I think we have that right. But you know where this is
We
at,
lost
right?
a lot of water right there.
Yeah, you know where this is at? It's right across from River Oaks entrance. It's a condominium.
Condominiums that are on, the ones that are back behind the Mid-Ohio offices. We don't own those lines either.
Good times.
Is there a master meter? Is there a master meter there? Prior to it going into the
Yes.
condos?
Okay.
So if something something like this were to happen at those condos, because we have a master meter, we would be able to charge for the water and loss. These condos that have individual meters in all the units,
That's correct.
so we drive in there and read the meters. Are they the radio ones, or we just drive by them? I think so.
They're the newer.
Okay. But we don't have a master meter. Why, yeah, I guess, why was the decision made to not master meter this and master meter the other one? How about the condos that are on the street up past Butch's office? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You go on Franklin, you turn there, you go on up, you got those condos back there.
Those
Are those master, those are individually
But I
metered?
think that's our right, if I remember. Is that true?
Only down Professional Parkway, but the other.
On the street.
On the street, the main that services a lot of the areas and stuff is there.
But that's not master meter. Is that looped? Is that line looped then?
I'd have to look on that. I don't know for sure, I'm sure. Someone,
Because if it's looped, how do I master meter that?
you know.
I think the amount of water that you lost there, you have any idea how much it was? That many gallons? How long was that
I
thing?
could look at the tanks and I could give you an estimate.
How long was that thing running like that?
Well, we were actually on another main break. We were on another main break on Watson Road on the repair on the valve that we thought, and while we were repairing the valve, the stem blew out of the valve. We had an immediate main break. So we were working on that, and that's when we were about in the middle of that one, that's when this one. So we had to let it run for a
The
while.
stem blew out of the valve, what happened?
Because, John was on earlier to do a main break repair, and he noticed the valve just kept spinning. Okay, well, he knew something was wrong, so the next day, he decided he was gonna go down and fix it, which is good, I mean, he's right on top of it. But when he did, he got down there and exposed it, and then the valve, the nut valve, or a portion of it, blew right out of the top of it when the pressure. So then it created a main break, so then we had to put it in.
That's why they wear hard hats.
That's, we put in a brand new main. So,
So, okay,
More than our head.
did these breaks happen before or after?
the new high service pumps. I was wondering about that. I don't really think, well, one main break they were working on was a cause of just the valve being bad.
Yeah.
The other, this main break,
Houston said.
but we've been running the high service pumps ever since then. Yeah. I didn't have a problem.
But not pushing it like.
Not pushing it like we did that one day that we did.
I think, myself, I think we ought to charge it.
Mr. Groff, what do you know about the cost to accept parts of this infrastructure that River Oaks coming in?
Quite a bit.
Please
About,
explain.
about 2 months ago, or 3 months ago, they came in to get permits for some additional units they wanted to build. And, we went through our records at that time and discovered that, hey, when this was designed, it was designed for the city to have ownership of the water line. Now, for us to have ownership of the water lines, they have to dedicate the water lines to the city, just like in any other subdivision. They have a dedication when everything's installed and we accept it inside. That never occurred here. It's the owner's responsibility perform the dedication. And prior to the dedication, one of the things they need is if they want to dedicate water lines, they have to create an easement to put those water lines in that they provide to us, so we can go in and perform service work within that easement. They never did that. And we advised them of this 3 months ago, at least. I we just discovered in our records, because they were inactive for probably 5 or 6 years. Then all of a sudden this year they became active again. So we went back to
Who was inactive?
the villages of River Oaks. They were inactive in that they had no building or anything else.
Oh, okay.
And now they're having resurgence, which is good. However, they never completed the dedication process, and that's their job to do it. I really don't push them on it, because as long as they own the lines, they're responsible for all the maintenance and everything else. So at this time, they officially still own the water lines of the villages of River Oaks.
And we officially charge for what you done. Thanks. I think
Here's the problem though. The builder for the villages of River Oaks, who was actually responsible for making sure they were dedicated, is now turned all of the property and the public utilities over to the condominium owners themselves. And that was, oops, I forgot that type of situation. So it's not the guy that built the lines and developed it that's on the hook for it. It's
all
now
the people in there.
It's the people in there who didn't even know it wasn't dedicated. Who didn't know they still own the water line. So,
How do we, okay, so when this whole, so when this project was developed, conceptually, from the conception of it, the idea was that these water lines and sewer lines as well?
no,
Were these water lines going to be city lines?
yes.
Were they required to install them per city specifications at that time?
Yes.
Who inspected to make sure that that was being done?
At that time, I don't know, I didn't do the inspection. When they were installing them, they were supposed to contact us.
We've already found out that they're not city specifications. The valve boxes on the valves are plastic. The lid-
Say that again?
The valve boxes, there's a valve, and
Yeah.
there's a valve box.
Yeah,
It's all, the one that we were digging up in that picture.
the valve box is plastic.
Yeah, which is not a city spec. This right here, and they had to dig up the road in order to get on the valve, in order to shut the water main
Because the
down.
valve box had collapsed.
Because the valve box, they couldn't get on it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it collapsed or what it did, but when they dug it up, there was a piece of plastic pipe that they found somewhere, shoved down on top of the nut with a plastic lid. Okay, so where that came from, or if it was a repair, I don't know if they're all that way. I haven't really investigated it, but that's the way that one was.
So at no point in time was that ever
It's nothing, well, it might have been written up somewhere that what was supposed to be there, but
It wasn't a city
what actually.
specification.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what
it
I'm
might
saying.
have been city specifications, but during the installation process,
Someone
they did a
said that.
very poor job of calling the city for inspections. Apparently, at that time, it was all done.
So, okay, so a plastic valve box has never been up to city specs.
The John at the fence too, I think that
How
when
deep
that
was the
initially
line?
put in.
Well, she's getting on top of the valve, I'm guessing probably about 4 feet. Which is just
That's-
barely.
I was gonna say, is that deep?
Barely.
Just barely.
Anything to move that?
Not yet. This is one of the, just going back, when condominiums originally came to the city, we weren't going to accept anything, water, sewer, or anything. There were 2 reasons for that. One reason is that if you look at the demographics of the condominium complex, they're almost all retired people, so they pay no income tax to the city, and the property tax that goes to the city is minimal. So one of the worst types of complexes that you can have in a city for generating tax revenue to support itself is a condominium. So The only way we can save money with condominiums, or even make money, is not to, and the state allows a condominium to go in as a private complex, where everything, all the utilities, all the roads, all the buildings are owned by the citizens, not by the municipality. So our responsibility stops at the water main and the sewer main and the street and the stormwater line in front of the condominium, which is what we want, because we don't have the tax revenue to go in there and make these repairs to anything. And so they allow condominiums, because of that, to actually have their own standards when they go in. The sewer line, the curbs and the gutters and the streets are not put into city standards. They're put into whatever standards they want, as long as they can pass the EPA requirements.
Yeah.
That's the way it has been for every condominium in the city, with the exception of the villages at River Oaks and the one on Licking Meter out by the high school. And the reason those are different is because we agreed to accept the water lines, and the water lines only. And the only reason we agreed to accept the water lines was that our fire department, justifiably, was very concerned that the fire hydrants would not be maintained properly, and that if there were a fire, we may have some liability in regard to hydrant not working.
We've talked about that in the condos there on Hopewell, as far as who's flushing the hydrants.
See, now in that case, we don't have anything to do with it. And that's even a totally different circumstance, right, John?
Right, the ones at Hopewell, on Hopewell Drive, was the first condominium unit in there. We have absolutely no responsibility for anything. The same with Hopewell Heights.
And we've told them that.
Right, they
The
are.
residents' concern has been voiced to me. Well, how do we know that hydrants are being flushed? How do we know that hydrants operate correctly? And we don't.
We don't, that's their responsibility. They knew it going in, and I have had many meetings with the residents out there in the past, because they were really upset with the developer, because they didn't understand when they went into that subdivision, Jim Aldridge. That's what he first moved, they're totally responsible.
You talk about Village River Oaks.
No, Jim Aldridge.
Oh, Jim lived in the other one? Oh, okay.
Then he moved to the villages of River Oaks and went from the frying pan to the fire.
Yeah.
So,
Because these people are paying both township and city taxes.
but remember this, they're paying us very little. If they look at their tax duplicates on property tax, they probably pay us maybe 10 cents out of every dollar they pay for property tax we get at the most. We get virtually no income tax revenue. So they don't have a leg to stand on when it services, but yet we provide them with police, fire, and water. Plumbing.
John, is there anything in writing saying that we have to accept the River Oaks water line, or can we turn that down? If we find out that it's not put in the city.
If it's not put into city specs, we can turn it down, I'm sure. I mean, Dave Morrison would have to confirm that, but that's the deal. Now, to find out in writing, we can go back and see exactly what was said.
But here's the
How do we
bad
prove that
thing.
it's not to?
Well, these guys, I mean, you guys can look and see. You guys can look and see what type of lines are installed. We can look and see what the depth is. We can look and see. We can dig up a corporation.
Well, we
stock
can
and
find
see.
out. I mean, John, when I go back and ask him how deep was that line, you'll know.
Yeah.
And I mean, but when we originally went in there, like I said, to fix the valve that we couldn't get on, there was parts in there that are not city spec. I mean, we don't allow plastic valve boxes, we don't allow plastic lids, we don't allow.
Was the valve itself per city spec?
I asked John.
Original engineer stuff for that.
So we've got all the time.
Oh,
Here's the bad thing. If this line is not up to city specs, and we decide not to take it on, John's just said, the builder is out of this. Yeah. So it's not as though the builder is in any way penalized for not doing what they had agreed to do back in the beginning. If at the conception of this thing, that everything was supposed to be installed per city specs, if they're not, the person who was responsible for that now is out of the picture.
Well,
And
Well, that may be,
The whole farm goes to that.
but if we build the association, then why can't they turn around and go back to the builder and sue him because it was not done to specification, and we are suing them, or we are billing them, and, you know,
That would be their only recourse, I think, they have to take the builder to court.
I think so. And I think that nothing will happen unless we bill them.
That's true.
But that doesn't
I'm not a
solve
lawyer, I don't know.
what you wanna look at, though, is the bigger picture. I mean, that's not unimportant, but the bigger picture is the upset line. You know, and, this is one of those cases where what we would do, I would recommend, is because of the weaknesses shown in the line at this point, you may want to require, a letter of credit for so many years on the existing line and stuff like that. So I mean, there are ways to get around. I'm ignoring what you said for a second because it's a valid.
A letter of credit, John, what do you mean by a letter?
What I'm saying is this.
Guarantee.
This line is from what, maybe 10 years old, just like, and water lines don't usually break in 10 years. And because of a break on a relatively recently installed line, should we question the quality of the other line, especially based on what John's found, inconsistencies, at least in visual areas where you can see curb stops and stuff. I'm not saying that we shouldn't accept the line, but I'm saying based on the performance of the line today, we may want to guarantee that what we're getting isn't going to require extensive repairs over a period of time. And for instance,
Who's gonna back that guarantee?
they have to have a bond, they have to carry a bond or a letter of credit. Not us, them. In order for us to accept
See,
it,
that's if you say that guy's out of it now, it's back on the association out there.
Yeah.
And you present them with a bill, and they're gonna have to divide it, how many places are in there.
I'll do an assessment for every condo.
Right, an assessment, yeah.
Or it's gonna spur some litigation
Right.
back to the original owner based on whatever
That's right.
contract they signed, or harmless, as is, whatever they've got.
What's
My personal opinion is, why, you know, if we find out that it's not put in the city specs, and it's not the right valves, and it's not the right, different things,
Don't take it.
don't take it. I wouldn't even get involved. I would just say it's your baby.
Well, that's the reason why we bill them for the work you've already done.
Bill them, let them fight it.
Bill them, let them fight over it.
There's so little
You got
revenue.
guys, how long were they out there, John? Quite a while. And the material and everything you take, I
We
think
got
we should.
5 guys and about 5 hours overtime.
There's so little revenue benefit. It's a Lakewood School District. You get pennies on the dollar for all the taxes, right? So,
I have a little bit of a problem with billing them for something after the fact, because we didn't put them on notice that this was something we weren't paying for. Because if I call you up to my house because I've got a problem, and you just start working and you don't say, you need to understand, this is on your dime, I'd have a problem if you sent me a big bill later. I would be more inclined to think we put them on notice now and say, out of the goodness of our hearts,
That's
we
why
did this, but in the future, it's on you. And they can still go after that other guy because they can say, hey,
But if we don't bill them the urgency to go after that other guy, that doesn't mean that we have to file a lawsuit or something with them, but I think to put teeth in the request, you bill them.
But if you're not gonna accept it, why, if you're not gonna accept it?
it's a whole different issue.
yeah, I'm not,
Yeah.
I think,
I think this is a complex thing, and I think we all ought to hesitate before flying out quick solutions to this thing, okay? I think we need to think about this a little bit more carefully. What you're talking about, as far as the specs, okay, that's key. When this was designed, if it was written into the whole, from the beginning, if it was understood the city was going to be getting these water lines, then one would have to assume that at that time, the builder was said, build it to spec. The specs of that day, if these lines are not installed to the specs of that day, then yeah, then I don't, well, okay, that portion of it. It's not hard to dig up a valve box and put a new valve box in, okay? That's not hard. That's also not all that expensive compared to if you're talking about a line itself, or if the valves aren't up to spec.
Is if that portion of it wasn't up to spec, then what all else was up to spec?
I agree. If it's not up to specs, then we probably shouldn't take it. And if we don't take it, I mean, the residents there are really the ones getting caught in the squeeze, okay? They did not know that the builder did not complete the idea, this dedication of the water line. They didn't know that. They didn't know how these lines were installed, if the builder was actually following the specifications that they had agreed to follow when they did, if they're not up to specs.
Well, then maybe.
You know, I mean, let's keep that in mind, that the people who are really in the squeeze here are the people who probably had the least knowledge or control over what was happening.
Well, then maybe what needs to be done, maybe Deb's right, is we don't, I was saying, hey, bill them. I think maybe we need to let them know if those lines are not up to spec from this point forward. Any breaks or any maintenance that we have to do in here, you will be charged for. Just let them know right out of the get-go.
I think we need I mean, obviously we can build them tomorrow, or we can build them next year, but I mean, there's no rush to build them for this. I think what we need to do is, we need to work with these people. We need to communicate with these people.
That's right.
Make sure they understand what the issues are, what the concerns could be here. These people may have had may have had the wool pulled over their
Let me tell you
eyes
this,
and not, not know.
When the gentleman from the association called me, he wanted to know when we were gonna get things cleaned up. In other words, when we were gonna fix the street, when we were gonna put the mail on. That's when I told him, I said, well, first of all, the street isn't ours. We have water main isn't ours. And I said, we went in there and did the repair because we were losing a lot of water. And I said, and he acted shocked, he just got quiet on the phone.
Who was it that you talked to? Do you recall?
He's the president of the association. I got his name written down. I think I got it on the phone.
Yeah.
Because he left me a message, so I can get you the guys. But I haven't heard back from him since unless he's talked to you, John.
No.
I haven't heard back from him since that conversation. I haven't heard a word. That's been.
We've got,
He's probably looking for somebody to repair his street.
I think you gotta. I'll put my NERC hat on for a little bit because they have different condos, different problems to look at. But if you're going to NERC has kind of switched now that they want to have the water lines and an easement around it and the hydrants for the reason that you talked earlier about being able to maintain those fire hydrants and maintain the main water line. Okay, so that's usually what they want to do. Now there are some private things where they put in a master meter in, and then everything after that is their baby. Okay, so you got to decide up there whether you want the water line or not. If you want it, then let's get it up to standards. Check the box out.
Pregnant, aren't we?
Yeah.
So if we don't want the water lines, then we need to put a master meter.
Master meter in. That's your first choice. Do you want does the city want the water line? If the city wants the water line, then what you need to do is get the easement around the water line, get the dedication of it, and then go through and every valve or whatever, check the box out. Is it plastic or is it cast iron, whatever it is? And if you want to bring it up standard, fix it. And if you want to charge them for it, here's what's costing, or make them hire a contractor, go in and change them out, bring it up to standards and get it done. But I think what you need to do is decide as a city, yes, no, you want it, no. Because if you do want it, then I think you have a meeting with the homeowners association president and their board or whatever and say, look, we know this is, it's been out there. You guys didn't know, some may not or whatever. And then get it settled. Don't let it just sit back and not, worry about it.
I agree with you too, Tim. I mean,
You know.
I think we do need to make that decision, but I'm also concerned about from this point on. I mean, if we have, let's say we have another condo project that goes in. Absolutely. How are we gonna handle that from this point on? Or is it gonna be master meter? Is it gonna be ours?
Well, I would say if our decision is we want the control of the water line from the get-go, it'll be ours, and
Yeah,
Like-
do you have anything that Heath says this is the way a condo will be handled in the city of Heath?
Didn't you say
Yeah.
the state
Yeah.
regulations?
Yeah. You should have development
A couple of
regulations.
things to clarify. First of all, the reason the dedication didn't take place is you dedicate something that's completely installed. When we do subdivisions, River Oaks or Willow Ridge, when a phase is done, you dedicate it, and everything within that phase can be in. The villages of River Oaks, and I'll be honest with you, we need to look at the one by the high school as well, have not been completed. They never even completed phase one of the villages of River Oaks years ago. They're still not completed with phase one. Theoretically, when they complete phase one, then everything is dedicated. They never completed it, so it was never dedicated. This is something we're learning now because we've never had any experience with this before. Secondly, we've got some responsibility there ourselves. And I don't believe the water line was probably inspected. That's not John's fault. This water line went in before he was ever superintendent, so he has no responsibility towards it. Was it inspected when it was being put in? I don't even know. I mean, we've got people that have retired since then, and they have that knowledge. So I don't think we have any records that are inspection records of that as well. And
it should have been pressure tested, and you should have had.
Yeah, it should have been, but, do
Yeah,
we have
wouldn't the
records?
EPA have had to have gotten something that said, hey, this water doesn't have bacteria in it?
Well, we would have pressure tested it and stuff like
Bacteria
that.
tested.
But would we have had people there watching it being installed?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Did we or did we not? I don't really know. What, was it pressure tested, chlorinated, all that other stuff? Yes, I'm sure it was. So what I'm saying here is we're probably, if you're pointing fingers, we have to have something pointed at us.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're not completely free of.
Go ahead, John, I got a question after you. Go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah, go ahead, and I got a question
What-
after you.
That being the case, the developer agreed to put it into our specs, correct?
Yes, he did.
Then why don't we go back to the developer and tell them to finish it, do it right, make them fix it? We could force the issue much more easier than they're gonna be able to. Whether the development's done or not, he still hasn't completed the job by basically dedicating that line. So he needs to complete the paper to dedicate the line, then we can go back and say, we're not accepting as is, because you didn't put it in.
He says-
the
But what John
He
was
said
saying
so.
is that the phase hasn't even been completed.
We haven't built enough condos, Brian, in the project even to get phase one. There's like 3 or 4 phases in the
Yeah.
project.
Yeah.
It goes all the way kind of down the hill.
But the project's done, though. They're done, right?
Phase one is not finished.
It's,
Phase one is not even finished yet. See, what John was saying was, once phase one is finished, then the developer should dedicate the line, should go through the process of dedicating the lines. Phase one hasn't even been finished yet.
Is there an amount of time that he's given to complete the phase?
no, there's no real amount of time. This is kind of a different situation because no one really has much experience with this. As Tim is saying, they're just beginning to develop their own guidelines and do it.
Huh.
There's a lot more condominiums than us. And the other thing we need to look at, and maybe John's already done this, but have you actually gone back and checked the plans to see if the plans specify what they now have? It's possible, the plans at that time when they were approved, we might have said, yeah, it's okay to use this stuff. I don't know, we need to go back and check. It may not be, or it may be.
The planning commission, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we would have explained to them when they presented, if you want this dedicated in the future, here's the steps.
See, that's what I'm hoping. Yeah,
Back 8 or 10 years ago when this, when first got off the ground.
that's what I'm hoping.
I mean, I remember in phase one, they got to build turn lanes in, or in the car. Remember that?
Yeah, they're aware of
When they
it.
get phase one finished, there's a left turn
Yes.
because of the intensity of traffic and the bulk of traffic. So that's gotta be done before dedication's ever complete. That's the other
That goes
thing.
in with phase two.
When at the beginning of yours.
Yeah.
The completion of phase one, they gotta have that.
Before they build
Before they
anything,
build
phase
the
two, they have to.
phase
Before they
two.
start phase two, they've gotta have Cardinal,
Yeah, before they put anything in phase two.
they agreed to do that.
So, and I said, I think the first thing we need to do is go back, check the plans, see if the devices and the materials they used were in accordance with the plan. If they weren't, then we have a leg to stand on. That's the first thing I
That's
want to
what, so was this plastic valve box cover paved over?
I don't know, I have to ask John, all I know is they knew where the back. All I saw, John said, I don't know what they did there, because it's a plastic box, it's a piece of plastic, you showed it, Dr. Shin, you got it's a kind of plastic lid on it, so it's block.
Like we do, so we
And that's
look at their
nothing
pipe, see if it's class 52, the type of pipe. They got it all stock, you look at it, okay. Tags, the valves, you look
Where
at
they
that.
got it at, I don't know, they
There's no
broke it,
stockpiles,
and then
you
maybe
look-
it's just that one,
you
but
know,
what
their
we can do
castings or
is we
something
can go
come
back
out
and
here.
investigate it,
Yeah,
and the other
sometimes
valves,
we'll go,
we say,
this is
well,
That's what I'm-
till we
that's what
come
I'm
casting.
wondering.
We
But
can
if
they're
make
paid
heavy
over,
weight or something like that.
well,
If we make them change stuff,
They
they
shouldn't be
should check
paid.
it out.
I know,
When
but
they
we have
start
some
before they
in the
start the
city.
project,
Well,
you know what I mean?
those are our roads.
No, that's
so
not
there's
saying
no
that they
more
might not
blocks.
switch them out in
Yeah.
the middle of the
So
night.
if they paid
So I
something,
mean,
But you know what I'm saying,
We
at least
have
catch
no
us.
way to
And
know.
I don't know whether they did that
Maybe
back when they
they
did this
Right.
project or not. You know,
yeah, I don't
someone
know
should have
what
gone out there and looked at the
so
water
on our
pipe.
road, so we're not gonna be involved in any of the, anything, that's what bothers me, if we don't be strict about these things and say, this is the way it needs to be done, then you're gonna run into this, we're gonna go in there, we're gonna try to fix the main break, the valve box is gonna be paved over, because we don't have anything to do with the streets, and so then we kind of try to find it, we've gotta dig up the streets to find it, and then, it just,
Snowball.
yeah,
You're
I mean, to me, it's either in the city, to me, it's either city or it's not. If it's not, you stay the heck out of there,
Put
You
a
don't-
meter
you don't-
on them.
You put a meter on the
Outside.
front of it, you don't go in there, and
But-
whatever happens,
But right now, it's not that black and white. Okay, right now,
We need
we
to know.
could have in place an agreement that says that we'll eventually take it over if it's per city specs. I mean, it's not that black and white right now. And I guess what I'm saying is
Put a
that
meter on
until
it.
we get to
Put a
where it's
shut
black
off-
and
Shut
white,
off right there too.
we need to be
Yeah, you gotta shut off the
So that
meter.
there's a breakdown
And-
in there,
and
you
working
just
with
shut
it.
the summing on
Yeah, you
off.
could shut it off.
Nobody's
It's-
got
it's-
it
So you
on.
shut it off.
it's
you
not
take it
gonna
out.
do anybody any good.
No, what I'm saying is.
Just
you shut
all of a
the one
sudden
off,
have them receive from the
everybody
city
in there,
a bill
and we're not gonna lose the water.
without any kind of
I mean, they're
understanding
gonna
or
have to repair
explanation
it.
as to why we're doing
well, I'm not saying that. I just presented it to you guys so that I knew what we should do. I mean, I don't know.
Here's an idea.
Yeah.
Why don't you call, let's do it, let's find out finance the space.
Yeah, I
We
think that's
have
what John
agreements,
said.
number two, why don't you call Condo Association, historical background, our city manager, city manager, their bill for X number of thousands of dollars would be substantial. Tell them exactly what's going on. Victims, they inherited, whatever they inherited, they're all clueless. Tell them, this is across the, tell them to go up the corner. Say, this is it, we want.
That's exactly what I meant by billing.
In
You
consider-
don't just
in
send a bill and
consideration, these are
not
res- these
explain
are-
it, you gotta explain it to them, but you gotta bill it to put some teeth into the comment.
Here's a bill for $8,000 worth of
Yeah, time and work and
Time.
everything.
labor and lost water. It's $8,000, folks. You have to assess each one of you X number of $100 for this. We're gonna educate you on what you now own, folks.
Yeah.
This is, gonna do notice to let you know, it ain't gonna happen again, because this bill will be activated. We'll put weather, we'll put lien on this property, if you have to. But just educate this, they're victims.
Yeah, that's right.
They don't know what they're doing. So John's message, your message, the mayor, they now know exactly what this stuff comes
And
for.
where they stand.
And where they stand, and what we don't have to do is dedicate stuff that we don't expect.
Yeah.
This thing was put in half-assed from the get-go.
Well, maybe and maybe not. Like I'm saying, there's a huge difference between.
I gotta verify a lot of stuff, we gotta verify a lot of stuff.
I'm not saying
I said
half-assed.
Jim Roberts
I
probably
know
approved the thing.
how long people.
Probably,
own this
reviewed
property
them.
for years. drove over roads with the lower layer of asphalt on it, they never put a top coat on it. Look at things packed. Yep. How do you know the stuff under the ground wasn't done?
How do we,
Maybe it was, maybe
how
it
do we
wasn't.
find that out? I mean, okay, you dug up one small section of a line.
So we should
The
know,
valve
have an idea
box-
about the depth.
Yet the valve box was plastic. Now again, is that city spec? No. Is that a relative easy fix? Yes. A valve box is not hard to change out. But no, I'm not saying we would pay for it. I'm saying for them it's a relative easy fix. If the line's not the right depth, what about the corporations to the main? Were they installed right?
That was
How do we
that was
find
part of this failure, was that the saddle that they used to wrap around the main failed.
Okay.
So that was part of this main.
You also
Okay.
talk to a resident there, and you can find out that they've had several problems with shoddy workmanship in the condominiums.
Yeah.
So if they're doing shoddy work there, that where it's in,
I will tell you one thing that I thought was kind of interesting.
compensation that they had, it's been shoddy.
I've had the same conversation.
What John said is true. to
I've
some
heard it from
extent
other condo owners.
about condos not developing, not people not supporting or whatever, but what I thought was kind of funny was a couple of the neighbors that was in the condos there, I recognized who lived in the city of Heath and raised their kids in the city of Heath, and lived in Heath for years and years and years. They either had a spouse die or they're older now, and then moved from there, that condo association, because I recognized a couple people, one of them lived on Fair Drive, one of them lived. Yeah, she was out there.
We grew up with that kid.
But that's another kind of factor.
The bowling lane.
Well, too, I mean,
And these condos are in the city of Heath. I mean, these were annexed into the, it was
They're paying the water bill.
it was an expedited
They're paying the water
annexation.
bill too.
If we're considering.
Yeah, and they pay.
water bill.
They are Heath residents, they're Heath.
Well, Joe brought up a valid point, and I gotta agree with him, it's something that we need to do, is,
Well,
you talk about, the fire hydrants in Hopewell, they're hydrants. The roads are theirs, we did put curbs and gutters in,
we've got to come, like the mayor said, the black and white. You guys really that needs to be ironed out.
But we
I mean,
should-
this is the way you're gonna handle condos, and this is the way we're gonna do it, this is the way we should do it.
But-
From this point on, because if not, then you get these hybrids. You get one condo that you own the hydrants, one condo you don't own it. I understand exactly what you're saying.
it's just not that, it's also, like you said, the streets and gutters that we didn't put in up in your neighborhood. What a mistake, I mean, we should protect the current citizens, our potential citizens, from being shot when they find something like that out. I mean, let's make them do it right in the first place, let them make shortcuts,
That's
if you don't
not-
wanna build it right, don't
That's
let them
not a
build it.
bad analogy in that if, John, you're saying that there's
It doesn't fix your
already
problem
an
now, I know,
agreement
but-
in place that's saying that the city would take over this water line. The decision was already made regarding this condo association. As long as everything is up to specs, then yeah, we're getting the lines. That decision was already made. What you're saying is how do we want to handle this moving forward? What's the best way to handle that? Which is kind of a separate question.
Do we do a master meter? Do we allow separate meters? Do we let a condo association go in without owning the streets? Do we allow, do we, what do we do?
Well,
Don't do?
We're really not protecting future citizens if we allow them to do that, because if they wanna do that, they wanna do it for one reason, it costs less money. So if it costs less money, it's cheaper, it's not up to the standards, and then these people that move in, they get blindsided, whatever it is, curb and gutters, water
But you're
line,
now
fire hydrants,
protecting
doesn't matter.
all of the cities, all of the residents of Heath by taking over those things. Because as I said, these people are paying pennies on the dollar compared to you, or Jeff, or me. And they're getting a lot for very little. We have to carry the load for them. So how much of the load do you want to carry? That's what you've got to determine. You want to cover the whole thing and say, yeah, we'll just throw it on the citizens' backs that don't live in the condominiums. You need to go back and look at that. And this isn't our first rodeo with this. When we had a problem with the Hopewell condominiums, they sat at this table or the other table, and they had these same discussions. Should we, with the next one, should we do this, should we do that? And it evolved into, well, let's just do the water lines. So, I mean, we're kind of going full story here with this, just full circle. I'm just bringing that up from a historical.
How's their
perspective.
sewage? How's it?
We have learning pains of work, Willow Ridge, okay?
Sewer is not ours.
We have
sewer
learning- we
lines
have
is
learning
not
pains
ours.
of Willow Ridge, we
It's
learned a
theirs.
lot.
Right.
That's why
Where
River
does it
Oaks and the
go?
Woodlands,
Goes
the
to our
Fox
point.
Run are better designed subdivisions. Same with condominiums. We have learning pains. Yeah, but we were rookies at condominiums. We learned a lot, okay, with the 2 and 3 different floors. Now, as we're getting some age on these condominium projects, now we're running into
Got to
this stuff.
establish it.
There's
Now,
one other
now
thing
that
too.
we've learned what we learned, we establish some firmer standards.
And to consider this, they pay, these condominiums, the reason we charge, they pay full fee for water taps and sewer taps. So you've gotta be careful here, because these people pay thousands and thousands of dollars for each unit. They had a water tap or sewer tap, so we
So
have to
we
be
didn't
careful.
just charge them for the tap of the main off of Irvingwick, we charged them on
They weren't even,
on a
they
unit
weren't
by-
charged for the main off of Irvingwick, they were charged for every unit.
Oh.
So that's why they're
See, that's-
individually, and we charge them for the water, the sewer, the meters, each unit is individually.
So in
what-
almost
so-
every way, we handle it as if we already own it.
Yeah, but what the problem is though, is you let them put in the sewer line, that's not city specs. But yet, you know, we take their sewage, but the lines were never put in the city specs. That's why we don't want anything to do with the sewer
We're
lines.
not sure.
The water lines supposedly are put in city specs, but did we have an inspector there to inspect it? To make sure that they were put in the city specs? I don't know, but from what we've seen so far, it don't look like it. And this, you know, to me, you put it in city specs. You know, these condo associations, they've gotta pay what everybody else pays. If they put a road in, they gotta put it in city specs.
I guess
Because the road thing bothers us, because if they got a valve in the middle of the road and they cover it up, we don't know, or a sewer manhole, we don't know where it's at. So if you get away from city specifications, the whole reason for city specifications is that so that everything's put in the way it's supposed to be put in.
I would argue that point, John,
Okay. Why?
substantially. Number one,
Then don't let us be responsible for it. Don't let us
I
inherit it.
didn't, John, and
Yeah.
I'll be honest with everyone here, I was not for us taking any water lines or any utilities. That wasn't my voice at all, because this would eventually come. The reason condominiums go in, the reason they have the fees that they do, is because, as John said, and as you have said, they put things in it's substandard quality. So they charge less for them, so they can charge less for each condominium, so the developer puts more money in his pocket. That's exactly what's happening. And if those people that buy into condominiums want to accept that, that is their call. That's not your call. That's not my call. That's their call. Okay? We don't have any say in it. And the state allows the condominiums to go in as that. It's a private development. It's a little city unto itself. And the state allows that. The state allows them to determine their own specifications. Now, when we approve
Then
the
why are we
plans,
babying them now? Why
Yeah,
are we, if we allow them to do this, then why are we so concerned about these individual people now? I mean, if it's gonna go onto the backs of the other people that live in the city to repair it or to, whatever has to happen.
Right.
Then if they were on their own, then why are we?
Are condos required to have, do they have to be inspected by the county code department?
yeah, the buildings, yes, okay, the buildings.
So there are, let's be real careful when we're talking about shoddy work and stuff like that, or we don't know. And we don't wanna come out accusing anybody of doing anything wrong, okay? But builders from time to time do cut corners.
But I think you
And
do
that's a
what you
fact.
said.
whether or not the condos, units themselves are in good shape or not, I mean, that's beyond what we're looking at.
Building structure?
Here's what we need to do. We need to try to do some homework, find out exactly what our commitments were for this condo association. Find out, let's work with them to find out, we need to inspect this stuff as best we can after the fact to try to determine, was this water line installed per specs? If it wasn't, not only should we not take it on, but the homeowners have to be made aware of this.
Right.
Because Dick's absolutely right. Their only recourse in all of this could very well be legal action.
Yeah.
And that is gonna come with a price tag. I mean,
The thing is, I think
we gotta understand, these people, people that buy these condos, they don't necessarily know the whole process. I mean, let's be fair.
Did you know the whole process when you bought your house?
No. The only thing I knew was that the homeowner's inspection came back clean. And I trusted that guy knew what he was doing.
That's right.
Exactly. So, I mean, like I said, I'll go back to this. The people who could most be in the middle here are the people who probably are the most innocent bystanders involved in this whole process.
But that's the reason why that you three, John, and you should go and tell them people, here it is, John, you should figure out how much it costs the city, how much water you can come pretty close to how much water was lost till we got it shut off. Present them with this bill and say, look, here's where we're at. This needs to be inspected. It needs to be.
Let me ask you this. And I'm gonna go to a different condo association. We'll talk about the one on Hopewell here again. We do not have a master meter there, correct?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, we do have it.
Oh, that's the one that does.
Yeah.
Hopewell
It's
Commons
Hopewell.
or Hopewell Heights?
The one across from Goodwill is on a master meter.
Okay. So if they were to have, okay, so we just build their association.
Evidently built into their bill somewhere. Never ran through
Okay. Hopewell Heights, we do not master. Okay. But we also do not own that line. Okay. If they had a leak, a slower leak, okay, one that we didn't know about, we wouldn't know about it for quite some time. Until they probably had a sinkhole.
But I think we have the ability to make away with a person's, like, we can shut the water.
Yeah.
Say, until you get this fixed.
But here's my point. Here's my point, John. If we don't have a master meter in front of a line that we don't know that there's a problem.
No, not TCO on top.
Not exactly. And
There's
if
a
we
lot
don't,
of circumstances like that, probably in people's front yards. If you take an older home in Heath that still has a galvanized line, I guarantee you the line's leaking from the main into the house. Almost guarantee it. And the only way those people are gonna fix it is if they starts puddling when they walk into the house and they get their feet wet.
you're right, I guess it's the same
Okay,
thing.
and they're not
There's a
getting
stretch
billed,
of line
and
there
they're not
before
getting
the
billed
meter.
for that. They're not getting billed for that, so they don't care.
Yeah.
And that's when we have to step in and say, hey, wait a minute, this is getting turned into a pretty major leak. Boom, we shut it off until you fix it. And then we make it.
Okay.
We have that ability, it's in our ordinances.
I'm still talking.
Yeah.
All
All right.
Got on.
I'm gonna put my contractor's hat on. All right. First, call Jim Roberts. He probably approved the plans. He probably, reviewed them and stuff like that. So he'd be good. Next, find out who installed the water and sewer lines. It could have been Leighton, Rayco, there's all these companies around town. They could have been the ones that installed it. Okay. Anything. Who knows why that one valve box? Did you ever go just pop in the other valve
That's
boxes
what
and
I'm
see if they
saying,
were capped?
there's still a lot of
I mean,
investigation to go.
there's so much you could find out just by asking a few people. what's going on.
It may
'Cause
just be that specific valve.
Yeah,
I didn't
and
go around and check every
other
single valve.
contractors, I mean, I deal with them all the time, different sites and stuff. And the guys that work for them and stuff, a lot of times they'll say, hey, you better check out that, because we were missing something or whatever happened or whatever like that. You can find out so much from these guys that work for them and stuff like that. I mean, and they know if they put good stuff in or, what it was. Maybe it was, they had some stuff out in the shop that they had to get rid of or something, and just needed a small little piece and, things happen so like that. But I'm sure somewhere in your records you might find, was the line, I mean, especially like the sewer line, it probably had to be air tested. It had, EPA, it had to have permit to install from the EPA to put it in.
All the EPA tests.
I mean, there's all these records that should be somewhere. I mean, I don't know what, could be lost in the file, whatever. But, and if you can find out who actually did install the stuff. The other thing I was thinking, since you said there's different phases and they haven't completed anything, so essentially since this is the beginning of the whole thing, then theoretically you could charge, I mean, if someone still owns those other lots or that undeveloped land, okay, so theoretically that person, if that's still a developer or somebody, could be on the hook for part of the fees too, not just the individual units that are using it, but the whole thing. I mean, if you thinking about someone's getting off scot-free, because eventually someone's probably going to try to develop it if someone wants more condos. I mean, you don't just say, oh, well, there's 25 condos, we're charging you 25 when there's still 75 spaces
Left to go.
on the plans, you know what I mean? It's just,
Well, I agree. I think you've all.
but I think you need to go back and find out more information before you start. I mean,
We've
get
all
your
touched on
information,
this.
we've
but
all
don't.
don't.
Touched on this, and I think the most important thing that we get out of the whole thing is that number one is that we check into what's going on. We'll verify what's going on with the records and everything out there. Try to find out, make sure it was put in city specs, and we'll take care of that. And then, every condo association appears to be a little bit different. If there's a way that we could standardize that some way, so that, we're because when they come in here and you look at it and you approve it and all that, I mean, you gotta be able to maintain it. So in order to maintain it, you gotta be able to know what, you gotta be able to dig up the road, you gotta be able to do certain things or whatever. So there's gotta be some kind of a guideline to make it. So we don't get one place we're in charge of the fire hydrants, one place we aren't in charge of the fire hydrants, I mean, we need to keep them consistent.
Okay.
I think we're good. I'll check in, John and I, I'm sure will check in to see if the plans were met to specifications, and I'll go around and see if all those valve boxes are plastic, or it's just that one specific one.
Yeah, we got a lot of homework to do.
And,
We have to approach these things.
I thought this was kind of interesting. This was one of the breaks there. Actually, that slipped into a joint, and if you can see, that's plastic pipe. And if you can see, like, it almost looks like fingers, but that's from where the water was leaking on that pipe, and it just actually wore the plastic away. And I've never seen that with plastic, but that was one of the first times that I saw it. That was the main break on Watson Road. I want to talk about the gravel pack and screen. If the screen gets too much built up in the sand and minerals, this can lower the efficiency of the well. I'm on a well now. We are cleaning a well at the water plant. It's well number 8. So well cleaning was the last clean in 2004 on this well is the last time we cleaned it. Currently using agitation with air, chlorine, and acid. Pump shafting motor will be evaluated for repair. We use a camera to evaluate the process of the cleaning before the cleaning starts and then after the cleaning.
We're doing 1 or 2 this year.
We're just doing one. That's gonna be number 8. That's number 8. That's them setting up the rig. This is after the motor's been pulled and the pump inside the well house. This is the shafting that goes down through that'll be checked and made sure that everything's brought up to snuff. I don't know if you guys know, and I just mentioned this and I know we're running behind, but how important it is that you clean a well on a routine basis every 6 to 8 years, that it goes through a check and everything. A lot of the communities, especially in smaller communities, they call in and say, I don't have any water. And then they're really under to try to get something worked on. But us, we're consistent on our maintenance and everything, so we don't experience that kind of urgencies. This is the pipe that's used to push air down in the well to clean it. This is the video camera that we're actually videoing down inside the well. This is the screen at 173 feet deep. And you can look, you can see the gravel. You can see the gravel inside on the other side of the screen. That's good. As you go further down, we're down to 194 feet. This is the packer that's in between the two different, there's 35 foot of screen, and then every so often you have a packer that seals the two screens together. This is the bottom of the well, 208 feet. You can see a big difference of the buildup that's in the screen and the debris on the bottom of the well. That needs to be cleaned and flushed out. That's what they're in the process of taking care of now. I want to let you know that the insulation was completed at the distribution building. It's R30 in the ceiling, it's R19 in the walls. There's a picture of it that was put in the addition that we added onto in the distribution building. And that's another picture of it. Also wanted to show you, this is the heating unit that was taken out of the other building that we moved. It wasn't being used, it just was sitting there. So we moved that heating unit into this new unit building that we built. And so that'll keep the temperature warm in there for the equipment and so forth. So if we have a main break, as you can see, we have the dump truck stored in there, a lot of equipment that we use on main breaks. So when it's in the middle of the winter and it's really cold, you go out, we can start everything up, make sure that things are done. I wanted to show you a quick pedosphere of what we're doing, wanting to build in WCLT to replace that. That's actually a pedosphere in Pickerington, Ohio. This is one in Baltimore, Ohio. I also wanted Pickerington. This is Baltimore. Then I wanted to talk briefly about the ADR study that's underway right now. The contract was signed by the mayor on 4/9/14. The report will have two purposes of this study. One is a preliminary study of the proposed replacement of the water tank at WCLT site. That's portion A of the first one. Portion B will be the water service to Lemar Heights, Misty Meadows, and Overdrive. If we ever decide to service that area, it also has to be taken in to look at the size of the tank that we're going to put over there, the height of the tank, so that we could, in the future, if we ever want to service those areas, we have the ability to do that. The second part of the goal of the study is to prepare cost estimates for dual feed to Seminary Road water tank going out on the west end side. Water line extension to Lemar Heights subdivision. We're going to get a price estimate on that. We're going to get a price estimate on water line to Misty Meadows. And we're going to get a price estimate on Overdrive, Rosemary, Terryland, that area over there, the area that I talked about previously. Major fund report, those are the amount of money left in the major funds. They'll all be on your sheets there. I'm not going to go through them, but you can see what we have. Mayor was talking about the wastewater replacement fund, where we're talking about using some of the money to paint the south clarifier that has $959,261 on it. And I also wanted to mention that we don't monkey around with the water and wastewater fund. Okay. Other than that, I think we're good. No, I actually came into work one day and they had that sitting in my chair. So I had to grab a picture of it because they put a hard hat on it. And it was a big banana, so I thought I'd show it. We're done.
Any questions, comments? Questions, comments? Okay, meeting adjourned 7:14. Thank you.
I was prepared.
Tim said that she's gonna be coming in and handle it.